Bonjour, this is Véro. This week I am in the beautiful city of Bordeaux in southwestern France. And I would like to take you on a little stroll today around a section of the old town actually. And this model is really handy because it shows you what I'm going to point out today. This is the cathedral, the beautiful Bordeaux Cathedral. And here is a building that dates back to the 18th century. It was known as the Palais Rohan. And today it is the City Hall or Hôtel de Ville of the city of Bordeaux. It's also the Museum of Fine Arts. It sits right next to it. And this is a very important area in Bordeaux because you have a lot of public building. The university is here. You also have the law courts. So we will see some of them in a minute. But for now, we are on a beautiful square. And as a French native who grew up in southern France, whenever I am on a square like this one, surrounded by platane or plane trees in the shade in the heat of the summer, I know that I am in southern France. This square is named after French resistance hero Jean Moulin. And this building you see here is a former bank, but decades ago became the Centre Jean Moulin. It's a museum dedicated to the French resistance and deportation. Sadly, every time I come to Bordeaux, it is closed, and I just found out it's been undergoing a major renovation and won't reopen until 2022. But I'll be sure to return when it opens because Jean Moulin played a major role in unifying the French resistance. He was a very brave man who went to London after France surrendered in World War II and met General de Gaulle and accepted to try and bring together all the small resistance groups that were all over France. And he did a very good job, except in 1943, he was betrayed, tortured, and died on his way to Germany. But what we all know here in France is that Jean Moulin never talked. And years later, his ashes were brought to the Pantheon in Paris, where he is buried now, as befits a man like him, a brave man. So now on to the cathedral. Cathédrale Saint André. Saint André Cathedral. This cathedral they started building in the 11th century, and major work was done pretty much throughout the centuries until the 15th century. The style is definitely Gothic, but it took a while to become what it is today. It is probably the most impressive religious site in Bordeaux. I'm going to try and get closer to show you some detail on the facade. It is said to have impressed architect Viollet-le-Duc so much that when he renovated extensively Notre Dame Cathedral, which was in pretty bad shape, you may remember in the 19th century, he came here and saw the statues on one of the portals I will show you in a minute, and was inspired to do something similar in Notre Dame. There are several portals around the cathedral, and this is one of them. You also have a beautiful rose window. There's another one facing the other side. And one of the portals is interesting because you have to go down a few steps to get to it. But this is the one where the statues are in such great shape that it is rumored to have inspired Viollet-le-Duc. Facing us is the former Palais Royan. built in the 18th century, I just mentioned, that became both the Bordeaux City Hall and the Museum of Fine Arts, and you can visit that building. But for now, we're still around the cathedral. And here is the other portal I was telling you about. I will try and show you the statues. And the ones right above them. It is really a beautiful cathedral. If you ever come to Bordeaux, you should come and visit it. This is La Place Pey Berland. It's one of the major squares in Bordeaux. Bordeaux has a lot of smaller squares in the old town. Right now we would be within the walls if we were in the Middle Ages. But on this square, for example, you will see more sprawling cafe terraces. It feels like there is more space than in a lot of the small streets you find in the old town. Again, I am facing the City Hall, which we call in French sometimes Hôtel de Ville. You may know that the word hotel, hôtel, in French has several meanings. One of them, of course, is a hotel where you stay when you travel. Another one is Hôtel de Ville, which means city hall, like this one. Another one still is a hôtel particulier, or a private mansion. So you have to be careful when you talk about the hôtel in French, because it could mean very different things. We are at the beginning of August. The weather has been quite hot, but today we're getting a little bit of fresh air and wind, which feels really nice before the heat returns soon. Now, at some point in the history of the cathedral, the structure got weakened and they had to work on the flying buttresses, les arcs-boutants, and they had to add, or to stabilize the structure, I should say. It's Monday morning, early August. I saw locals earlier going to work, for those of them who were still in town. I see French tourists, like myself, but not that many people otherwise. Yesterday, Sunday afternoon, was busier by the local riverbanks, La Garonne. And here is the tram, which is a wonderful way of going around Bordeaux. It's very modern, very efficient. It takes you all the way out to some of the suburbs. So in Bordeaux, you have to look everywhere when you cross the street, because you have bicycles, just like in Paris, more and more bicycles. And you also have trams and, of course, cars. And here is Lance Armstrong practicing training for the Tour de France. Here is the part of the University of Bordeaux. This building houses their Faculté de Droit, which is their law school. And like I said, the courthouse is in this neighborhood as well. So this square plays an essential role in local life. If you followed the street all the way to the end, which is a few blocks down, not very far at all, you see the tracks for the tram on the street, you would reach the river, the Garonne, and the city is organized around the river, like many big French cities, Paris, Toulouse, and more. What I'm doing right now is walking around the cathedral. Here is another one of the portals or entrances to the cathedral. Another big rose window and a massive wooden door. Like the rest of the city, you can see the stone is that light colored stone, which is very pretty, is in very good shape. And you can see that all over Bordeaux in a lot of the streets of the old town. So around the square, you have some peaceful streets, and then you have streets with a lot of shops, small businesses. But the reason the city looks so good, with so much, I think, uniformity and style, which is not the case of other cities everywhere, is because one of the mayors of Bordeaux, named Alain Juppé, who served several terms, but not back to back, took over, I think, in the late 1990s, and for about 20 years undertook a vast project of just renovating the city, which had turned over the years very gray and dirty, the facades, and you couldn't see the beautiful bones of the city anymore. And once that was done, locals and visitors rediscovered Bordeaux. It was back to its former glory, when it was a major French city in the 18th and 19th century. So this is where you wait for your tram. You can see people doing that. Face masks are mandatory, not in the street yet, but they are mandatory in any public transportation in France. Most people are pretty compliant in public transportation. You can see Bordeaux, like a lot of southern cities, is doing a great job at planting trees, especially on a big square like this, where the sun in the afternoon must be really hard to put up with. So they tend to plant a lot of trees, and you can stay in the shade of the trees. You see that all over southern France. This red door is the entrance to a neat building, unfortunately closed right now due to you know what, or you know whom. But I will walk to that end over there so I can look back and show it to you. Look at this beautiful facade. And you see these everywhere in Bordeaux. So again, we are in Bordeaux, southwestern France, and we are on la Tour Pey Berland, one of the largest squares in the city. Let's see if I can turn around now and show you that building in spite of the sun facing me. You see this high tower? This is the clock tower of the cathedral, which stands right here. And the reason they didn't attach it to the cathedral is so it wouldn't compromise the structure. But there are there are bells in there. And I think you have to climb, as I recall, over 270 stairs. And then when you get to the top, you have an incredible view of the whole area, the Garonne River, and the city of Bordeaux itself. But like I said, this summer, unfortunately, the stairs are so narrow that they had to close it down to enforce social distancing. So I'm going to take you here from the side so you can see more of the beautiful Cathedral Saint André Cathedral, and its intricate Gothic structure and style. You can hear the wind, hopefully not too much in the microphone. Some impressive architecture. This brown door, I checked earlier, is a an attorney's office, but look at the size of that door. Now you may know that at some point in time Bordeaux was a very wealthy city, and probably still is in many ways. And a lot of the wealth of some people here came from the maritime trade, wine and other goods. And from the late 17th century through the 18th century and later, the slave trade as well. And that was not unusual in France. Other cities like Nantes profited from that, and many other European cities. So some people had a lot of money and could afford to build the type of buildings I've just shown you. One last thing I want to point out, right by the cathedral is this statue. I will walk around and turn back. This gentleman, his name Jacques Delmas. He was known in France affectionately as Delmas. Here is his name. I hope you can see it. It says he was a compagnon de la libération. So this man played a very important part in the French resistance, and was all of his life, for the rest of his life, he was a Gaullist, part of the Gaullist party launched by General de Gaulle. He was the Prime Minister of France for a while, the President of the National Assembly, and as you can see, he served an incredibly long term as the mayor of Bordeaux. He died in 2000, but he actually served several terms from the end of World War II in 1947, pretty much till the mid-1990s. He died in 2000. And he's the one who commissioned this center dedicated to the French Resistance Saint-Jean-Moulin, which sits right here on that pretty square where we just started. Bordeaux had several influential mayors. One in the 16th century was Michel de Montaigne, the French author and philosopher. The other one was Jacques Delmas, I just pointed out. And another one more recently was Alain Juppé, the mayor who decided to clean up and renovate the city. I hope you've enjoyed this little stroll with me today. I will do more, but it was fun to show you a major square in Bordeaux, la Place Pey Berland, and the beautiful Saint André Cathedral. There's been a religious site here, of course, way before the 11th century when they started building the cathedral. But one last thing to point out is that Bordeaux sits on one of the major routes that pilgrims in the Middle Ages followed all the way to Santiago de Compostela. And Bordeaux sat on one of the routes that go left from Tours, Tours, in the Loire Valley. So a lot of the pilgrims would come here, including in this cathedral, on their way to Spain. So that's something worth knowing about Bordeaux as well. A lot of history, a lot of interesting things to learn here. So thank you for joining me today. My name is Véro. Online I've been known as French Girl in Seattle for more than a decade. I am a tour guide and a long-time travel blogger, and because there is no tour guiding right now, I continue to guide and teach virtually by sharing content, photos, stories, and videos in all my media channels under France with Véro, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you want to have access to more content, more live events, and see behind the scenes, you can also join the France with Véro club by looking me up on Patreon, an international community of creators, patreon.com/French Girl in Seattle, where rewards await. And I hope you look me up there. I really appreciate your support. Thank you, and see you very soon, or as we say in French, à bientôt.